Earthworks is an audio company based out of New Hampshire, and they've been around since the mid-90s. Now, Earthworks was started by a guy named David Blackmer. Now, unfortunately, David passed away in 2002, but he spent most of his career publishing a lot of audio research and creating audio equipment that was really well received by the industry. He actually founded DBX in the 70s, and obviously you can still find DBX gear all over the world. So when Earthworks approached me about sending me some mics to test out, I was really surprised that I didn't know more about them. I had seen Earthworks mics used in some Drumeo videos and on my buddy Austin Burcham's channel. But as I did some research, I realized that drummers like Steve Gadd, Anton Fig, Keith Carlock, Sput, and Carter McLean were all exclusively using Earthworks mics. So I wanted to make a video to introduce you guys to this company and show you how I'm using these mics in my current setup. We have 13 mics on this kit, 9 of which are Earthworks. For my snare, I'm using a DM20 on the top and an SR25 on the bottom. My first and second toms are also mic'd with the DM20, and the lowest floor tom is a DM20 blended with an Audix D6. We have another Audix D6 for the main kick mic, and I'm using the Earthworks SR20 LS as the kick batter. I have a second SR25 on the hi-hats, and my overheads are the QT C30s. I also have 2 AKG C414s on this kit, one as a center overhead and another as a close mic on my crasher hats. Now, I'm totally aware that 13 mics on a 5-piece kit is a little heavy-handed, but having this amount of inputs allows for a lot of different options in mixing. So let's start by removing all of the effects on this mix and let you hear how the raw kit sounds right off of the preamps. So one thing you'll notice right away is that there's a heavy room tone that's not usually in my recordings. A lot of this has to do with the C30 Overheads, which are Omni mics. These mics grab a crazy transparent tone from the room that I have definitely never heard before, at least from my other microphones. So let's just listen to the left and right overhead soloed so you can see what we're getting from the C30s. So you'll have to take my word on this, but that recording sounds so similar to how the kit actually sounds in this room. There's a really lifelike presence to the overhead recording, and it's definitely made me think a little bit more about what I want my overheads to contribute to the mix. Adding these overheads to the mix gives me more of like a realism option, and really, that's kind of the whole Earthworks approach, capturing a sound that truly represents what we hear in the room, not just the mic's interpretation of the sound source. I would describe all of Earthworks mics as colorless, but it's most obvious with these QTC30s as overheads. It really sounds like you're in the room. Now, overheads aside, one of the most impressive mics that Earthworks sent me is definitely the DM20. I'm using that for my snare and toms. Now, I oftentimes use C414s on toms, so you can imagine that I deal with a lot of bleed. And I'm willing to deal with that bleed because the 414 has such a crisp high end, but it doesn't leave behind any body. Now, in this studio, my other tom mic options are the MD421, which I find a little bit too throaty on the SQ1, and of course the E604, which just doesn't have enough high end for me. The Earthworks DM20 is the first mic I've used that has all of the rich mid-lows of a MD421, but it still has that high end, crisp clarity of a C414, and it's actually priced right in between those two mics. On top of having an awesome natural sound, the DM20 has crazy isolation, which has been really refreshing for me coming from a C414. In this next clip, let's solo just the 14-inch floor tom mic so you can hear the isolation of the DM20 and you'll hear the raw tom tone that we're getting off of the mic. Super clean, right? Now, I'm not gonna solo every DM20 on the kit, but they're all like that. Really clean, transparent, with very minimal bleed. But I actually think the coolest thing about the DM20 is the gooseneck. These mics are so easy to mount in place, and I've managed to not bash one of them yet because it's just easy to get them out of the way. Now let's talk a little bit about the SR25. The SR25 is killer on cymbals or any sound source with a higher frequency range. Right now I have the SR25s on my hi-hats and on snare bottom. So in this next clip, I have the hats and snare bottom mic really hot in the mix so you can hear what we're grabbing with the SR25. Check it out. One of the cool things about the SR25 is that I found it just kind of works on everything. You just heard it on hats and snare bottom, and I think it sounds awesome there. But I also love this mic as a center overhead and even as a snare mic. The SR25 is probably the most versatile mic on the kit at the moment, and for that reason, I would recommend that mic as a good entry point to Earthworks. So if you were only gonna get one Earthworks mic, the SR25 is a pretty safe bet. And the last mic I have to show you is the kick mic, the SR20LS. Right now I'm using this as my kick batter, and it is crazy clean. Now I'm used to using an SM81 as my kick batter, but sometimes that just doesn't have enough low end, which isn't too surprising given that mic choice. The SR20LS is getting all of the attack that I want, but it still has a really solid and thick low end. I'm also using Earthworks kick pad in the chain here as well. Let's listen to just the kick batter soloed and see what we're getting. Now remember that all of these mics, except our overheads, the QTC30s, all of the other ones are part of the DK7 mic pack from Earthworks. For a deep dive into the DK7, head over to Austin Burcham's channel and check out his video there. There's a link in the description. He did an awesome job breaking down that whole mic pack. Okay, so with any mic, I always ask myself, what does this mic do that other mics can't do? What makes this particular mic unique? Well, with Earthworks, the entire brand is dedicated to absolute sonic transparency. So think about a mic like the Audix D6, which is heavily colored and pre-EQ'd to give you a very specific sound. Earthworks is the exact opposite. The intention of Earthworks mics is to capture exactly what you hear in the room with absolutely no color or characteristics added to the sound. But for me, it's easy to assume that all mics do this, right? Microphones capture exactly what you put in front of them, but you'd be amazed how much flavor a microphone actually adds to the sound source. And I mean, sometimes that's actually what you're looking for, right? A specific color that comes from the mic itself. But I found that there's this weird appeal I have to the transparency that Earthworks offers, because lately I've been trying to steer further and further away from this ultra-processed sound. And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with having that super modern, like ultra-processed sound, but as an educator, I have to consider that presenting lessons on a kit that is heavily processed can sometimes get a little weird. For example, if I were to compress the hell out of my snare, my ghost notes are now unrealistically loud, so a student might watch that video and say, why don't my ghost notes sound like that? Or go to the other end of the spectrum and think about teaching a lesson on a fully triggered drum set. Well, drums don't actually sound like that, so learning from a kit that's been triggered can get really confusing. So for all of these reasons, the idea of making my kit sound exactly how it does in this room is really appealing and seems pretty logical. So, as you may have seen on Instagram, I've officially become an Earthworks artist. Now, one of my concerns when I was first talking with Earthworks was that I would sign with them and then end up with like 10 or 15 old microphones that I can't use anymore. So I was really happy when they told me that they would never ask an artist to stop using any of their other mics. Earthworks is very aware that in a real studio environment, you use the microphone that makes sense for the job, not just the mic that an endorser wants you to use. So you'll still see plenty of my other microphones used in various recordings. I have a few of them still on the kit now. But at the end of the day, I have no problem saying that currently my favorite mics are coming from Earthworks. I'm super happy with the way my kit looks and sounds with these mics, and I'm so stoked for you guys to get to know this company a little bit more. I've had a blast working with them so far. I've got some links in the description if you guys want to learn more about the DK7 mic pack and the QTC30s. Keep an eye out for some upcoming Earthworks videos here, and of course, you guys will be seeing and hearing all of these mics in some future videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Adam here, the Orlando drummer, and I will catch you in the next one. Later.